Hi there, Agile friends. Get ready for the World Tour of Agile at the Agile Online Summit 2023. You can join us from October 24th to 26th for a global showcase of cutting-edge Agile practices and insights. Join us at agileonlinesummit.com. This year, we will be featuring some of the best work done around the world and world-class keynotes. You can check all of that at agileonlinesummit.com. But the best part is that your ticket is on us. That's right, it's free to attend and immerse yourself in the world of Agile excellence. Don't miss out on this opportunity to level up your skills and network with peers and industry experts. Mark your calendars and secure your spot at AOS 23 today by visiting agileonlinesummit.com. So get your free ticket or opt for the full digital pass that lets you keep all the conference videos forever and organize, why not, Agile learning sessions at work. You can get the full digital access at agileonlinesummit.com. I'll see you in the conference floor. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. This week, joining us from Johannesburg in South Africa is Khwezi Mputa. Hey, Khwezi, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, to be your guest.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you with us this week. Khwezi is an experienced Agile coach, trainer, and IT professional since 2008. With diverse roles like Scrum Master, Agile Project Manager, and Business Analyst, she's active in the Agile community, promoting diversity. Passionate about teaching, she empowers individuals and organizations to reach their full potential through coaching and mentoring. So, Khwezi, that was a short intro. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
So as you said, I'm based in Johannesburg. Khwezi is a mother of two daughters, aged 9 and 4. And I'm currently an Agile coach and trainer, working in an insurance company. But to answer your question on how did I become a Scrum Master? So when the story actually goes back to when I was young. So I hope you don't mind. But when I was young, I always wanted to be a teacher. But I'm not sure, Vasco, if you are familiar with the situation that happened in South Africa in terms of apartheid. Are you familiar with that?
Tell us a little bit about it so that everybody can understand the context.
So apartheid was a regime that of oppression in South Africa, where Black people were oppressed by the ruling party at the time. So during that time, the reason why my parents were not for me to being a teacher is that during apartheid, Black people could only be things like teachers or nurses. Those were the only professions that Black people were allowed to take. And because of this, well, I was actually, this was obviously I chose my career post-apartheid. So the end of apartheid, I'm sure a lot of people know about Nelson Mandela. He was the first Black president in South Africa, and like he's a symbol of equality and having apartheid, the apartheid regime ending. And this happened in 1994 when he won the elections. So fast forward, so my parents have that history. Fast forward, I'm choosing a career to go into after grade 12 or matric. And I tell my parents that I want to be a teacher, and my parents are like, hell no, you're not going to do that because of the history. So they wanted something more for me. So to cut a long story short, I ended up not being a teacher, but my journey led me to being a business analyst. So I did go to university. I studied something completely different to what I embarked in, which is in the IT industry. And my journey started off as being a business analyst. And I was in a company that was starting off with their Agile transformation. So we were a team very new to Agile ways of working. And I mean, we had your devs, your test analysts, and we had a Scrum Master as well. And what happened was the Scrum Master had resigned, and that left a gap within the team. So I decided to take the initiative of just starting to do some of the things that a Scrum Master does. I started facilitating sessions, I did retros, and I realized that what I loved about teaching was the actual point of helping people to unleash their greatest potential. So that's the element that that inspired me about being a teacher. And I realized that this is what a Scrum Master does during my process of just winging it as a Scrum Master. Um, and I figured that this is actually my calling. This is what I want to do. So I approached my the management at the time, and I told them that I want to be like, yes, I know I've been hired as a business analyst, but I've just realized that I have a passion in this space of being a Scrum Master, and whilst we're looking for a position, I'd like to ask that we don't look for the Scrum Master position. We rather look for somebody to fill the business analysis gap. And in the interim, I will continue to do both. And then we eventually got somebody to fulfill the business analysis part. And that's how my career started as a Scrum Master.
That's that calling aspect of the Scrum Master role is something that many of us, I'm sure, have experienced. And that sometimes helps us through difficult moments. Today is Monday, Khwezi, and we explore exactly one of those stories, a story that involves you as a Scrum Master and you trying your best, even though at that time, as it so often happens to us, the best just wasn't good enough. So share that story with us, Khwezi. Walk us through the steps, how it happened. We'll dive into the takeaways and the conclusions later.
Awesome. So what happened was the most difficult situation that I have been faced in as a Scrum Master was actually being in an environment that was not for me. So sometimes as individuals, you may have a calling, you may enjoy what you're doing, but you're in an environment that doesn't fulfill your passion in terms of what you're doing. And that's the space that I was in. And unfortunately, it was a blessing in disguise later on in hindsight, but unfortunately, I was literally worked out of a job.
So explain that to us, like walk us through the steps. So when did you realize, what happened that helped you realize that that space, that environment just wasn't for you?
So there was a lot of issues within the environment. It was a toxic environment, high pressured. There was a lot of prejudice against women, as well as Black people or people of color. So instead of focusing on the elements of being a Scrum Master, I found myself fighting for other things. But this is not the point that I wanted to share in terms of the most difficult time of my I can remember. What I wanted to share is that during this time in this toxic space, this was during the pandemic. I was unfortunately retrenched due to a restructure. So I was literally worked out of a job. And as Scrum Masters, I used to say this was the best advice that was ever given to Scrum Masters. And that is, a Scrum Master should always work themselves out of a job. And we say this to encourage Scrum Masters or to give them the courage to challenge things in the spaces that they are in and challenge the status quo. But in reality, I don't think anybody actually wants to be worked out of a job, because I mean, it's for some of us, it's a means to an end. It helps us, bring food to the table and etc. So this was a challenging part of my life where I was literally retrenched and I found myself in this space. But the lesson that this actually taught me is that it actually gave me the courage that I needed to truly serve the teams that I worked for going forward. So in my next role.
So before you go any further, Khwezi, so I want to understand that part a little bit more. So you said that because of what happened, you were worked out of a job, but that gave you an insight, right? Like that moment allowed you to get an insight to serve the teams that you were there to serve. So tell us a little bit more about that. How did you get to that insight? Was there something that was happening, some conversations that happened during that time? How did you get to that insight?
I think it was something more so internal within me, that the one thing that I feared was unemployment, but when it happened, it wasn't the worst thing that could happen to anyone. I mean, there's worse things that can happen. And as I said, for me, that situation was a blessing in disguise. And the insight that this gave me is that I mean, I used to play it safe as a Scrum Master, if I can put it like that. I would play it safe in terms of the things that I challenged. And this made me have the courage to no longer play it safe and actually be a servant leader for the team. And be in the forefront of any challenges that they're facing, be in the forefront of any organizational challenges that the organization was facing. And that's the biggest lesson that this situation taught me, is that the removal of the fear of being unemployed gave me the courage to, and it brought out the potential in me to be a better Scrum Master for the teams that I served.
I think this is a great story, because also of the other part, the beginning of that story that you were just telling us, that very often the fear of being laid off or fired ends up making us or forcing us, in other words, we force ourselves to stay in environments that are just not right for us, right? And in that particular environment, that was like graphically unsuited for you for many different reasons. And once you were out of it, you realize that actually this is better for me. I feel better now that I'm out. But for all other Scrum Masters out there, it's also important to realize that sometimes we are not happy where we are and we feel that we could do a lot better, but we're afraid to live and leave that behind and take on the next challenge. And I think that that's also for all of us listening to this story that Khwezi just shared. It's important for us to realize that sometimes that's the most important step, to face our fear, get out and find a better place.
Absolutely. I love the way you put it. And I just also wanted to share that the experience made me want to now work myself out of a job. I wanted to create or enable teams to function exceptionally on their own, and allowing them like to be self-managed and not needing a Scrum Master. I wanted to leave individuals in a team, not saying that Khwezi is a great Scrum Master, but for them to think that they are great. So, like when somebody in a team that you've worked on says, I am great, I'm a great developer and I'm a great contribution to the team, I believe that as a Scrum Master, that's your job done within the team. And in that, working yourself out of a job, it allows you to embark on the next challenge for yourself. And it also allows the team to now flourish without a Scrum Master per se.
Absolutely. That was a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Khwezi.
Thank you.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.